Hi, my name is Jim, and this is my story of parental alienation. This is chapter 2. Chapter 2 is called What is in a Name? My name is Jim, and this is the Parental Alienation Information Network. In the U.S., over 22 million people are targets of parental alienation, and over 3.8 million children are alienated from a parent. Parental alienation is a damaging pattern of behavior caused by one parent who unjustly engages in the destructive manipulation of a child's perception of an otherwise loving parent. The resulting psychological abuse culminates from many years of covert brainwashing. I am not a mental health professional or a licensed therapist. I'm here to help create awareness and share my experiences and the experiences of others in hopes of encouraging community support. If you find this channel is beneficial, please like and subscribe to help inform more people of the damaging effects of parental alienation. The link to join our Facebook group is posted in the description below, and I thank you for watching. It's difficult to perceive an alienated child as a victim when they are in many cases literally waging war against you. It's even more difficult when the child becomes an adult because as adults the belief is they are now mature enough, having free will and making decisions and drawing their own conclusions. Logically speaking, at some point they should be able to see through all the smoke and mirrors. It's difficult to comprehend that even as adults they continue to march to the beat of the alienator. Mental health professionals assert that the underlying motivation for this extreme behavior towards the alienated parent is driven by intense fear of the alienator, culminating from many years of psychological abuse, a subconscious fear so great that sacrificing the other parent is accepted. Through the years, I've struggled with many emotions repeatedly, ranging from anger, resentment, remorse, sorrow, optimism, and hope that one day my alienated child would find her way back. Of the many emotions, anger and resentment seem to overtake me when I least expect it. I guess it's my defense mechanism in counteracting the injustices and pain of parental alienation because no loving parent is deserving of it. Even now, I have a hard time understanding how a child I've helped to raise, one who is made of my flesh and blood, a child I provided love to and financially supported, and one who once loved me back, could abandon me for no legitimate reason, as if I'm dead to them. It's a tough pill to swallow for any empathetic and caring parent. In the early years, my anger and frustration controlled my reactions by not fully understanding the child as a victim. I've learned that as alienated parents, we must recognize that alienated children don't see themselves as victims or as offenders, but as champions fighting for a righteous cause that is lockstep with the alienator. Driven by fear, anger, and resentment, the alienator has programmed into the child. In this state of psychosis, the alienated parent is nothing more than an obstacle who is in the way, in many cases only regarded as a source of financial support, and is otherwise unworthy of attention or empathy from the alienated child. When the support ends, as in my case, so does the contact with the child. For the inexperienced and clueless alienated parent that I was, my biggest mistake was believing that I could teach my alienated child a lesson by mirroring my child's behavior, in hopes that she would realize how painful her lack of empathy towards me felt. As an example, when she failed to call or message me on my birthday, I would do the same. In fact, I was extremely hurt the first time my birthday passed, and the many that have since passed where she failed to acknowledge each of them. I wanted her to feel the same pain I was feeling, so I avoided contacting her on her birthdays, just as she had done to me. I realize now by doing this justifies the alienator's claim, or it doesn't justify it, but it works in the alienator's favor. My anger and resentment was caused by years of being under attack, ignored, and marginalized. Another example that played out during the time my child's high school graduation was occurring. She told me that I would only be granted one ticket to attend the graduation ceremony. This would exclude my wife and mother from attending. It was clearly a deliberate attempt by the alienator working through my child to sabotage what should have otherwise been a celebratory event. In response, I visited with the principal of the high school, who was sympathetic to my situation and granted me tickets for me and my family to attend. As a result of my anger and frustration over the whole situation, though, we attended the graduation, but I did not greet my child at the event. My thought process was twofold. Perhaps she would wonder if I even attended, having attempted to alienate me from my mother and my wife. Secondly, avoiding the possibility of confrontation with the alienator which would have most likely resulted in me being blamed for ruining the moment. In hindsight, I should have put my emotions aside and tried to greet my daughter, because ultimately I realized I gave the alienator exactly what she wanted. A few years later, I was invited to attend her 2 year degree ceremony, but we had very little contact in between this time. I was invited to attend, where my mother was able to attend as well, to congratulate her on her achievements and witness the ceremony. However, this was the last time, that I would spend time with my daughter, communicate with her in any, real way, or be involved in any future events. Shortly after, I would receive notice of a family court motion regarding support increases and obligations for college tuition. There was also a sum of money disputed. The alienator, often without my knowledge, would incur expenses without first discussing them as agreed by court order. Some of them would come directly from a service provider to me with no warning or explanation. The alienator would also violate the rules of our health insurance coverage that my wife and I provided, and the rules of the divorce settlement agreement, by incurring expenses from out-of-network service providers that the alienator just expected me to pay, no questions asked. I mention this because the results of the motion to modify support is what sealed my fate as an alienated parent. Having been fully alienated for 4 years prior, with little contact, as I said, very little contact or information from my adult child, I was having a difficult time accepting that I would continue supporting or contributing to her higher education. It was my position that I was being alienated from my child for many years, and if support were to continue, that a relationship would have to be reestablished. In addition, I was demanding that my alienated child and I begin attending mandatory family counseling on a regular basis. It was my intention to use additional support as leverage to force my alienated child to receive professional mental health care. Of course, the alienator refused to consider counseling and therapy between my child and I, arguing it would create additional stress to my alienated child and would be difficult while attending school. Of course, even if it were once a month, that would have been something. The alienator settled the motion, forfeiting any additional support beyond the end of the original consent order. Deciding against going to trial have involved an assessment by a professional mental health expert, or by settling the case by agreeing to counseling with myself and my child. Ultimately, the alienator would not allow the psychological abuse and manipulation to be revealed, regardless of the benefits of continued support that would only have benefited my child. When the alienator filed the motion, she did not anticipate or expect that I would put up such a fight. Many of those who alienate use family court system as a weapon, especially if they have the finances to play the long game. They will drag it through family court as far as they can. But ultimately, I didn't get the result I wanted, which was therapy, mental health evaluation for my daughter. Unfortunately, the outcome did not allow for counseling or eventual reunification with my alienated child. In fact, it was used against me to further the campaign of denigration. The alienator would use it to add more fuel to the flames by accusing me that I didn't care about her education or her well-being. A short time later, my child legally changed her last name to mother's maiden name. Isn't that something? The finality of this, the defiance, the ultimate injury, I mean, there was nothing left to diminish, nothing left to erase. There was nothing left but my name. And she erased that too. My alienated child is a poster child for psychological abuse, and I'm the face of a severely alienated parent. This has been going on all together from the time she was about 12 years old. And now this year she's 28. So with my experience, with what I described here and what I've learned to do and not to do, maybe I should have handled things differently. I probably should have, but I think my point here is I let my anger and frustration get in the way. Just a reaction, because it was all unjust. I didn't deserve any of this treatment. Neither did my wife, by the way. She took a lot of hits as well. She cared for my daughter as well, and so did her children. Um, so none of us deserved the treatment that we received. So there was a lot of bitterness and a lot of anger shared amongst all of us. But the bottom line is, they're victims. I mean, it's difficult to say because even though all alienators possess the same narcissistic type personality, some are more brutal than others. In my case, it would be safe to assume it's extreme. It's an extreme amount of abuse for my child and an extreme amount of injury as a parent to me. Here's some of my advice. Try to remember no matter what, no matter how hurtful the child is towards you, they are victims of psychological abuse and under extreme mind control. As hurtful as their actions or inactions may be, take the high road. Don't denigrate or insult the alienator or the abused child. It will have the opposite effect. It will actually bring them closer together. There's a fine line between trying to stay in contact with the alienated child and being overbearing or intrusive, especially if the child is an adult. It's best to only occasionally try and contact the child on birthdays, special occasions like holidays, special life events. Overdoing it may continue to push the child away, while infrequent attempts will serve better purpose to letting them know you're thinking of them, but not in an overbearing way. In my case, I have no idea if the phone number I have for my child is still valid and if she's even getting my occasional text messages. I hope she is. For years, I kept my Facebook account private. This was on purpose, keeping my alienator out of my life. This was important while going through family court and as she was using whatever she possibly could as ammunition against me. However, recently I have decided to make my Facebook public in hopes that my child may be curious or make an attempt at some point, especially if, maybe she doesn't have my phone number anymore, but my phone number hasn't changed in at least 15 years. I have not tried to friend request my alienated child either. The rejection of not responding to my text messages is painful enough. And if I open my profile, if at some point she wanted to reach out, or perhaps maybe she was curious, maybe there are some possibilities there. Well, that's all I have for today. I hope I've offered some insight and some advice based on my experiences on my journey through this mess of parental alienation. And hopefully, I've offered something tangible for you to consider and some advice. Maybe you could use